Picture this, it's the height of the Gilded Age in Newport, Rhode Island. August 19th, 1904. A warm summer night on Bellevue Avenue, the street of dreams, lined with colossal marble palaces, each one a fortress of new money, each one trying to outshine the last. But tonight, all eyes are on one house, a shimmering white jewel box overlooking the dark, murmuring expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. This is Rosecliffe, and tonight it is the center of the universe. From the outside, it glows, a vision of impossible elegance. A perfect replica of a French king's garden retreat, the Grand Trianon of Versailles, somehow plucked from the 17th century and dropped onto the rugged coast of New England. But calling Rosecliffe a house is like calling a Fabergé egg a piece of jewelry. It's an understatement of epic proportions. This was a declaration. A statement of power, of wealth, and of breathtaking ambition, built by a woman who had clawed her way from the dusty, silver-choked mining camps of Nevada to the absolute pinnacle of American society. Inside, a party unlike any other is unfolding. The hostess, Tessie Oelrichs, has decreed a white ball. The entire mansion is a symphony in white. The walls are draped in impossibly long garlands of white hydrangeas. The air is thick and sweet with the scent of thousands upon thousands of white roses and lilies, their perfume mingling with the salt spray from the ocean. The ballroom, the largest in Newport, is a churning sea of women in white gowns, their hair powdered white, à la Marie Antoinette, their necks and wrists ablaze with diamonds. Even the army of waiters, moving silently through the throng, are dressed in crisp white duck suits. This single party cost a fortune that could have funded a small town for a year. The flowers alone would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today. But this was just one night at Rosecliffe. The house itself cost $2.5 million to build in 1902. Let that sink in for a moment. In today's money, that's nearly $90 million, and that's just the construction cost. Today, if you could even put a price on it, this estate is estimated to be worth upwards of $200 million. To put that in perspective, the average American family at the turn of the century earned about $500 a year. The cost of Rosecliffe could have paid the annual salaries of 5,000 working-class families. It was a level of extravagance that is almost impossible to comprehend. A 65-room palace with a heart-shaped staircase, a ballroom that could hold hundreds, and an army of servants to keep it all running, all for a house that was used for maybe 8 weeks out of the year. But here's what makes this story truly staggering. Rosecliffe is still here. It survived, while dozens of its Gilded Age neighbors, colossal, magnificent mansions that were once the pride of America's wealthiest families, were unceremoniously torn down, sold for scrap, or simply left to rot. Rosecliffe endured. It stands today, not as a private home, but as a museum, a movie star, a silent witness to a vanished world of unimaginable opulence and quiet desperation. But why? Why did this particular palace, this monument to breathtaking excess, survive when so many others fell? How did it escape the wrecking ball that claimed the architectural dinosaurs of the Gilded Age? And what is the 120-year-old secret that allowed it to become, against all odds, too beautiful to demolish? To answer those questions, we need to understand the incredible woman who willed it into existence, a woman as tough and as brilliant as the silver that made her. Her name was Tessy Alice Fair, but the world would come to know her as Tessie, and her story doesn't begin in the refined, velvet-draped drawing rooms of Newport or New York. It begins in a place as far from this world as you can imagine, Virginia City, Nevada, a rough, chaotic, and brutally unforgiving mining town carved out of the harsh American West. Picture it, the 1860s. This wasn't a place of debutante balls and calling cards. This was a world of dust, dynamite, and desperation, a place of 24-hour saloons, back alley brawls, and the constant deafening roar of the stamp mills crushing ore. The air smelled of sulfur, sweat, and cheap whiskey. It was a town built on a mountain of silver, and it attracted the hopeful, the desperate, and the ruthless in equal measure. And in the middle of it all was Tessie's father, James Graham Fair. While other Gilded Age dynasties were built on railroads, banking, or steel, industries with a veneer of East Coast respectability, the Fair family fortune was dug, quite literally, out of the dirt. In 1873, James Fair and his three partners, a group of Irishmen who became known as the Bonanza Kings, struck the Big Bonanza, the single largest deposit of gold and silver ever discovered. The Comstock Lode. It was a river of precious metal flowing 1,000 feet beneath the Nevada desert, a vein of ore so rich it was practically solid silver. It made James Fair an instant multi-millionaire. We're talking a fortune of $50 million. In the 1870s, that's the equivalent of over $1.5 billion today. But this new, explosive wealth came at a cost. It turned James Fair into a hard-drinking, philandering tycoon, and it shattered his family. He was a man of immense talent but deep flaws. In 1883, his wife, Teresa Rooney, herself the daughter of an innkeeper, could no longer tolerate his affairs and his lifestyle. She filed for divorce, taking custody of their two daughters, Tessie and her sister Virginia, or Bertie. She had the money, but she was an outcast. The new money Fairs were seen as vulgar, unrefined, and utterly unwelcome by the old money establishment on the East Coast, the Astors, and the Vanderbilts, who had cemented their fortunes a generation earlier. And this is where our protagonist, Tessie, truly begins her journey. She wasn't born into the club. She had to break down the door. While other society women of her era were raised to be delicate, demure, and decorative, Tessie was forged in a different fire. She had her father's ambition, his ruthlessness, and his bottomless well of money. But she also had something he didn't, a burning, all-consuming desire for acceptance. She saw how the world looked at her family, and she vowed to change it. She didn't just want to join society, she wanted to conquer it, to rule it, to become so powerful, so influential, that no one would ever again dare to look down on the daughter of a Nevada silver miner. And she had a strategy. While her peers were content to marry within their own small, rarefied circle, Tessie set her sights on a man who embodied everything the Fairs were not, Herman Oelrichs. He was a handsome, charming steamship magnate, the American agent for the powerful Norddeutscher Lloyd shipping line. His family was established, respected, and deeply embedded in the social fabric of Newport. He was, in short, the perfect prize, a golden ticket into the inner sanctum. They met during a summer in Newport, playing tennis at the famed Newport Casino. The story goes that Tessie, a skilled and fiercely competitive player, made sure she won the match. It was a sign of things to come. They were married in 1890. Her father, as a wedding gift, gave her $1 million, a staggering sum, but he wasn't invited to the wedding. Tessie was already cutting ties with her messy, inconvenient past. With Herman on her arm and a fortune at her command, she moved east permanently and began her assault on the highest echelons of American society. She also orchestrated a brilliant match for her younger sister, Bertie, marrying her off to William K. Vanderbilt II, uniting the raw new money of the West with the established power of the East. But Tessie quickly learned that a good marriage and a big bank account weren't enough. In the Gilded Age, true power was wielded from the ballrooms and dining rooms of Newport's magnificent summer cottages. These weren't homes, they were weapons in a social arms race. And the reigning queens of this world, women like Alva Vanderbilt and Grace Vanderbilt, already had their fortresses. Alva Vanderbilt had Marble House, a palace of blinding white marble that had cost a staggering $11 million. Grace Vanderbilt had the Breakers, a 70-room Italian Renaissance palazzo that was the undisputed crown jewel of Newport. If Tessie was going to compete, she needed a palace of her own, a stage, a theater from which she could direct the grand drama of high society. In 1891, she and Herman purchased a property on Bellevue Avenue called Rosecliffe. It was a lovely estate, owned by the historian and diplomat George Bancroft, who was famous for his magnificent rose gardens. But the existing house was far too modest for Tessie's ambitions. She didn't want a garden, she wanted a landmark. So, in an act of ruthless ambition that would become her trademark, she had the old house torn down. This is the crucial thing to understand about Tessie Oelrichs. She wasn't just another rich woman throwing lavish parties. She was a field marshal, a strategist, a woman with a singular obsessive focus. Herman's own niece would later describe her as strongly addicted to society as business, and business was about to boom. She became one of the ruling triumvirate of American society alongside Mamie Fish and Alva Belmont, formerly Alva Vanderbilt. They were the gatekeepers, the tastemakers, the absolute arbiters of who was in and who was out. Alva was the extravagant one, known for her over-the-top galas. Mamie was the wild card, famous for her bizarre and raucous parties. She once threw a dinner party for a dog wearing a diamond collar. But Tessie? Tessie was the martinet, the drill sergeant. She was the one who enforced the impossibly strict rules of etiquette. She dictated what you wore, how you spoke, whom you could marry. To receive an invitation from Tessie Oelrichs was to be anointed. To be snubbed was to be socially executed. She was feared as much as she was admired. Her pronouncements on social matters were treated as law. She was the iron fist in the velvet glove of Newport society. And she needed a headquarters worthy of her new rank. A place that would not only rival the Vanderbilt palaces, but would also reflect her own unique theatrical style. She didn't want another heavy, imposing Italian palazzo. She wanted something different, something elegant, something French, something that felt like it was built for pleasure and for parties. She turned to the most celebrated architect of the era, Stanford White, a man known for his flamboyant style and his unparalleled eye for detail, and she gave him a very specific instruction. She wanted a house modeled on the Grand Trianon, the garden retreat of the French kings at Versailles, a place designed not for governing, but for escaping, a fantasy palace. This was the vision, a house that wasn't just a home, but a permanent festival, a place designed for one purpose and one purpose only, to entertain on a scale that Newport had never seen before. The challenge was immense, the cost would be astronomical, but for the daughter of a Nevada silver miner, nothing was impossible. She was about to build her legend, one block of white terracotta at a time. So the stage was set. The queen had claimed her throne. Now she needed to build her castle. But this wasn't just about putting up walls and a roof. This was about creating a masterpiece, a house that would be talked about for 100 years. And the man she chose for the job, Stanford White, was a genius perfectly suited to her grand ambition. Stanford White was a rock star of the architectural world, a partner in the legendary firm of McKim, Mead & White. He was a man of boundless energy, exquisite taste, and a flair for the dramatic that matched Tessie's own. He understood that this wasn't just about building a house, it was about building a fantasy. And the fantasy they chose was the Grand Trianon at Versailles. Think about the audacity of that choice. This wasn't some generic Italian villa or English manor. This was a royal pleasure palace, a place built by King Louis XIV for his mistress. It was a symbol of refined leisure, of aristocratic escape. By choosing the Trianon, Tessie was making a bold statement. She wasn't just an American millionaire. She was a woman with the taste and the means of a European monarch. But replicating a 17th century French palace on the coast of Rhode Island in 1899 was a monumental challenge. This wasn't a simple copy and paste job. It required a level of craftsmanship and logistical coordination that was staggering. The project began in 1899 and would take 3 years and a small army of artisans to complete. The first challenge was the material itself. Rosecliffe isn't built of marble like its neighbors the Breakers or Marble House. That would have been too heavy, too somber for the light, airy fantasy Tessie envisioned. Instead, Stanford White chose a revolutionary new material, glazed architectural terracotta. It was a type of ceramic cladding that could be molded into intricate shapes and finished with a brilliant white glaze. It looked like stone, but it was lighter, more versatile, and it shimmered in the Newport sun. This was cutting-edge technology for the time. Each of the thousands of terracotta blocks had to be custom designed, molded, fired, and glazed. They were then shipped to Newport and painstakingly assembled on a steel frame, like a giant, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. It was a fusion of classical French design and modern American industrial ingenuity. And then there was the centerpiece of the entire design, the one feature that was built to take your breath away: the ballroom. Tessie didn't just want a large room for dancing. She wanted the largest ballroom in Newport, a space so grand, so magnificent, that it would instantly establish Rosecliffe as the premier party palace on the continent. Stanford White delivered. The ballroom at Rosecliff is a masterpiece of light and scale. 40 feet by 80 feet with a soaring 22-foot ceiling. It's surrounded by elegant French doors that open onto the terrace, blurring the line between inside and out. The walls are a delicate white and gold, designed to be a neutral backdrop for the vibrant colors of the gowns and jewels that would fill it. This room wasn't just for parties, it was a theater for the performance of high society. But how do you get your guests to this magnificent ballroom? You can't just have them trudge up a boring set of stairs. No, the entrance had to be just as dramatic as the destination. And so, Stanford White created one of the most iconic and romantic architectural features in America, the heart-shaped staircase. It's a grand, sweeping imperial staircase that rises from the entrance hall, splits at a landing, and then curves back on itself, the two arms forming the shape of a perfect heart as they ascend to the second floor. It's a gesture of pure, unapologetic romanticism, a piece of architectural poetry that perfectly captured the spirit of the house. It's not just a way to get from one floor to another. It's an experience, an overture that prepares you for the symphony to come. Imagine you're a guest arriving for one of Tessie's balls. You enter the grand hall, and this magnificent staircase flows down to greet you. As you ascend, you become part of the spectacle. You are on display, an actor on this incredible stage. It was all part of the theater that Tessie was so masterfully creating. The interiors were just as important as the exterior. And for that, Tessie and White turned to the best in the world, the Parisian design firm Jules Allard & Sons. They were the decorators to the kings of Europe and the titans of American industry. They were responsible for the interiors of Marble House and the Elms, and they brought a level of authentic French elegance to Rosecliffe that was unmatched. Every detail was perfect. The Louis XV and XVI style furniture, the silk wall coverings, the crystal chandeliers, the intricate plasterwork. It was a flawless recreation of a French royal fantasy, right down to the door handles. It was a world of absolute perfection, a carefully constructed illusion of effortless grace and timeless beauty. But this illusion came at a staggering price. The final cost of $2.5 million was a number that shocked even the jaded society of Newport. Let's break that down. That's the equivalent of nearly $90 million today for a summer house, a place that would be used for maybe 6 to 8 weeks a year. The sheer scale of the investment is mind-boggling. Think of the logistics. Hundreds of skilled artisans, stonemasons, plasterers, woodcarvers, painters, brought in from Europe and across America. Tons of material shipped by rail and by sea. The finest fabrics, furniture, and artwork sourced from Paris and beyond. It was a project on the scale of a modern skyscraper, all for the purpose of creating the perfect party house. For 3 years, the work continued. The noise, the dust, the constant activity on Bellevue Avenue. Newport watched and waited and whispered. Could Tessie Oelrichs, the daughter of the Nevada Silver King, really pull it off? Could she create a house that would not just earn her a place at the table, but would put her at the head of it? By 1902, the answer was clear. As the last of the scaffolding came down and the full glory of Rosecliff was revealed, it was obvious that this was more than just a house. It was a triumph, a shimmering white declaration of victory. Tessie had her palace. It was elegant, it was breathtaking, and it was, above all, beautiful. But a theater is just an empty building without a play. A stage is just a wooden platform without actors. Rosecliff was built for a purpose. It was built for life, for laughter, for music, for drama. And now that it was complete, the real show was about to begin. The era of Tessie Oelrichs and her legendary parties was dawning. And it would be even more spectacular than the house itself. Rosecliff was finished, a perfect, shimmering white stage. But a stage is nothing without a performance. And for about 10 months of the year, that's exactly what Rosecliff was. A silent, empty, dust sheet-draped ghost of a house. Its 65 rooms sat empty. Its grand heart-shaped staircase felt no footsteps. Its magnificent ballroom, the largest in Newport, was as quiet as a tomb. But then, every year, usually in late June, the house would awaken. It was a military-style operation, orchestrated with precision by Tessie herself. An army of servants would descend, not just a handful. We're talking about a staff of at least 40 people for the season. Cooks, maids, footmen, butlers, laundresses, gardeners, stable hands. They would spend weeks airing out the rooms, polishing the silver, washing thousands of pieces of crystal, and preparing the house for the arrival of its queen. And when Tessie arrived, the entire machinery of Gilded Age entertainment roared to life. This wasn't about comfortable living, it was about performance. The family's private quarters were almost an afterthought. The house was designed around its public spaces: the ballroom, the dining room, the grand hall, the terrace. These were the spaces that mattered. These were the spaces where the business of society was conducted. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're a guest for a dinner party at Rosecliffe. You wouldn't just show up and eat, you would be part of a multi-act theatrical production. You'd arrive and be escorted to a reception room. Then, you'd process in a formal hierarchical order into the dining room for a meal that could last for hours with 10, 12, even 20 courses. Each course served on a different set of priceless china. After dinner, the men would retire for cigars and brandy, the women for coffee and gossip, before everyone reconvened for music or cards. It was a world of almost unimaginable formality. And it was all made possible by the invisible army of servants who toiled below stairs. While the guests were enjoying champagne and caviar in the ballroom, the laundresses were in the basement washing and ironing mountains of linen. The kitchen staff in a sweltering hot kitchen were preparing the next impossibly complex dish. The footmen stood silently at attention for hours, waiting to open a door or pull out a chair. It was a world of stark, brutal contrast. Upstairs, a fantasy of effortless elegance. Downstairs, the hard, grueling labor that made it all possible. For the servants, the Gilded Age was anything but golden. It was a life of long hours, low pay, and strict rules, all in service of creating an illusion of perfection for a class of people who barely knew their names. But even by the absurd standards of Newport, what Tessie Oelrichs did at Rosecliffe was on another level. She wasn't just hosting parties, she was staging spectacles, events that would be written about, talked about, and remembered for decades. And the most legendary of them all was the White Ball. It happened on August 19, 1904. The idea came from Harry Lair, the undisputed court jester and social arbiter of Newport. He suggested to Tessie that she throw a white ball party where everything and everyone would be white. It was a brilliant theatrical concept, and Tessie seized on it. The edict went forth. Women were to wear white gowns with their hair powdered white a la Pompadour. Men were to wear white court costumes, and, most controversially, they were to shave their mustaches. The men of Newport high society were not amused. They laughed at the idea. They grumbled. They outright refused. As the New York Times reported, some of the leaders said they would not make fools of themselves to please Harry Lair. The mustache in 1904 was a symbol of masculinity. Shaving it off for a party was a step too far. So they staged a quiet rebellion. They would come to the ball, but they would come in their conventional black evening suits. Not a single mustache was sacrificed, but on the night of the ball, none of that mattered. The scene, as one reporter wrote, was simply dazzling. Imagine it. You arrive at Rosecliff, which is glowing under the summer moon. You step inside, and you are plunged into a world of pure white. The grand hall is filled with massive arrangements of white hollyhocks and hydrangeas. Vases overflowing with white roses are everywhere. You move towards the ballroom. The permanent decorations are already white and gold, but tonight, the only flowers are pristine white lilies. The air is heavy with their scent. And then there are the guests. A sea of women in white gowns, a blizzard of diamonds and pearls. Against this ethereal backdrop, the men in their black coats stood out like crows in a snowstorm. But the true masterstroke was the supper room. Tessie had transformed the vast stone terrace overlooking the ocean into a magical Italian garden. Stanford White had designed a temporary structure with massive white columns, supporting a roof made of interwoven oak branches. And nestled among the green leaves were hundreds of tiny electric lights. This was 1904. Electric light was still a novelty, a luxury. To use it on this scale, outdoors, was an act of breathtaking extravagance. It would have looked like a captured constellation, a private sky full of stars. Garlands of white hydrangeas and hanging baskets of white orchids completed the illusion. Even the waiters were part of the spectacle, dressed in immaculate white ducksuits and white shoes. It was a fantasy world, a perfect, hermetically sealed bubble of beauty and wealth. There's a popular story that Tessie was so obsessed with the all-white theme that she asked the U.S. Navy to anchor their ships in the harbor so their white hulls would add to the view. And when they refused, she had fake temporary ships built. It's a great story, but it's almost certainly not true. If it had happened, the newspapers who reported on every tiny detail of the party would have been all over it. The truth is, she didn't need fake ships. The reality she had created was already more spectacular than any fiction. And this was just one party. There were others, each one more imaginative than the last. In the summer of 1913, she threw a Mother Goose and nursery rhyme ball. 200 guests were invited for a fairy tale dinner before the main event. Tessie herself greeted them dressed as Mother Goose, complete with a stuffed bird perched on her arm. She handed out toys and musical instruments as party favors. The cost for this one evening? $30,000. In 1913, that's the equivalent of over $1.1 million today. For a costume party, she even brought in the most famous entertainer in the world, the great magician and escape artist Harry Houdini, to perform for her guests. Imagine the thrill. In an age before television or movies, to see the world's greatest showman in person in the opulent setting of the Rosecliffe Ballroom. It was the ultimate status symbol, a private command performance. But here is the hidden truth, the secret that lay beneath the shimmering surface of this perfect life. It was almost all a facade. While Tessie was publicly playing the role of the devoted wife and triumphant hostess, her personal life was quietly unraveling. Her marriage to Herman Oelrichs was, for all intents and purposes, over. They were estranged, often living apart. He was a man who enjoyed a simpler, more athletic life. He was a champion polo player, a yachtsman. He was not, it seems, addicted to society as business. The tension came to a heartbreaking head in 1906. Herman was in San Francisco during the great earthquake and fire. When news reached Tessie that he had survived, she saw a chance for reconciliation. He was returning east, and she planned a lavish, intimate supper for just the two of them at Rosecliff. A chance to reconnect, to repair their broken marriage. She waited and waited. He never showed up. Unreconciled, Herman died just a few months later of a heart attack while sailing across the Atlantic. He was only 56, and when his will was read, it delivered a final brutal blow to Tessie. He left his entire estate not to her, but to his brother. The will stated that he believed Tessie would be content with her own vast fortune. Tessie, the ultimate fighter, contested the will and eventually settled for half of the estate. But the damage was done. The fairy tale had a dark, bitter ending. This was the reality of Rosecliff. It was a house built on a river of silver, but it was also a house haunted by a quiet sadness. It was a stage for the most spectacular parties in American history, but it was also the lonely palace of a woman whose greatest success, her conquest of society, had come at the cost of her own personal happiness. The house was a triumph, but the home was a failure. And this deep human contradiction is the key to understanding why Rosecliff is still with us today. It wasn't just a monument to wealth, it was a monument to a woman's unbreakable will. But that will was about to be tested in a way she could never have imagined. Tessie Oelrichs died on November 22, 1926, at the age of 55. Her funeral was held in the magnificent blue and gold tapestry room at Rosecliff, the house she had willed into existence. And with her death, the music at Rosecliff stopped. The lights went out. The Gilded Age, that brief, brilliant, impossibly extravagant era, was already a fading memory. The world had changed. World War I had shattered the old European aristocratic order that American high society had so desperately tried to imitate. The introduction of the federal income tax in 1913 had begun to chip away at the great fortunes. And on the horizon, the storm clouds of the Great Depression were gathering, ready to wash away what was left of this glittering world. Rosecliff, this house built for perpetual celebration, fell silent. It was inherited by Tessie's only son, Herman Oelrichs Jr. But Herman Jr. was not his mother. He had not been forged in the fires of social ambition. He was a man of a different time, a different temperament. The world of his mother, with its rigid rules and relentless schedule of entertaining, was a relic. And maintaining that relic was becoming an impossible burden. The cost of heating a 65-room house, of paying the taxes, of employing the army of servants required just to keep it from falling into ruin was astronomical. The very concept of the Newport summer cottage was becoming obsolete. These houses were dinosaurs, magnificent and awe-inspiring, but utterly unsuited for the modern world. And so, the great cull began. All across Newport, the lights were going out for good. One by one, the great houses, the palaces that had once been the pride of America's wealthiest families, began to fall. It started as a trickle and then became a flood. The choice was stark. Adapt, find a new purpose, or face the wrecking ball. Many did not survive. Think of the names: a litany of lost palaces, Beacon Hill House, a 60-room Gothic castle demolished in 1951, Rockhurst, a massive stone mansion designed by the famed Peabody and Stearns, gone. Crossways, a 50-room Georgian palace, torn down. Ochre Point, the grand estate of the Golette family, vanished. These weren't just houses, they were irreplaceable works of art, repositories of history, and they were being sold for scrap, their marble mantels and grand staircases carted away by salvage crews, their magnificent ballrooms reduced to rubble to make way for new, more practical, and infinitely less magical developments. It was a cultural extinction event, and it seemed for a time that nothing could stop it. This was the crisis. A battle was being waged for the soul of Newport. On one side was the relentless march of progress and economic reality. On the other, a small, fledgling movement of preservationists who believed that these houses were more than just symbols of excess, that they were a vital part of American history. In 1945, the Preservation Society of Newport County was founded, a tiny organization with a monumental task. And in the middle of this battle, the fate of Rosecliffe hung in the balance. In 1941, Herman Oelrichs Jr. made a decision that at the time seemed like the final nail in the coffin. He sold his mother's palace, the house that had cost $2.5 million to build just 40 years earlier. The stage for the most legendary parties of the Gilded Age was sold for the shocking price of $21,000. Let that sink in. $21,000. That's less than the cost of a new car today. It was a fire sale price, a testament to how far these magnificent dinosaurs had fallen. The buyer was a singer and actress named Gertrude Niesen. The house passed out of the hands of the family who had built it, its future now completely uncertain. For the next 3 decades, Rosecliffe drifted. It was a private home again, but it was never the same. The world that had created it was gone forever. By the late 1960s, it was once again on the market, and the threat of demolition was very, very real. It was a prime piece of real estate on Bellevue Avenue. It was huge, expensive to maintain, and its style of over-the-top French elegance was seen as hopelessly old-fashioned. This was the moment of truth. Would Rosecliffe join the sad list of lost mansions? Would its heart-shaped staircase be smashed to pieces? Would its glorious ballroom, the scene of the dazzling white ball, be bulldozed into the ground? The odds were not in its favor. The Preservation Society was saving what it could, but its resources were limited. They had managed to acquire the breakers in 1948 and the elms in 1962, but they couldn't save everything. Rosecliffe needed a savior. It needed someone who could see past the enormous cost and the decaying grandeur, someone who could see the house not as a burden, but as a treasure. And this is where our second protagonist enters the story. Not a single person, but a family from, of all places, New Orleans. Mr. and Mrs. J. Edgar Monroe. They were the last private owners of Rosecliffe. They bought the house in the late 1940s after Niesen, and for years they used it as their summer home. They loved the house, its beauty, its history. But they also understood that they were merely its custodians. They knew that a house like this couldn't belong to one family forever. It belonged to the world. As they grew older, they faced the same dilemma as every other owner of these Gilded Age palaces. What do you do with it? Let it be broken up and sold? Let it be torn down? Or do you find a way to save it? The Monroes were watching the battle for Newport's soul unfold. They saw the great houses falling, and they decided that Rosecliff would not be one of them. They began a conversation with the Preservation Society. Could a deal be made? Could a future be secured for this house that they had come to love? The stakes were incredibly high. The Preservation Society was already stretched thin. Taking on another massive property with its endless need for repairs and upkeep was a huge risk. For a moment, it seemed like it might not happen. The dream of saving Rosecliff could have died right there. But the Monroes were determined. They didn't just want to sell the house to the society. They wanted to make it a gift to the public, a gift to the future. But even a gift comes with costs. The society needed more than just the house. It needed an endowment, a fund to provide for its future care. The negotiations were delicate. The fate of one of the most beautiful houses in America hung in the balance. This was the crisis point, the moment where the story could have gone a completely different way. Rosecliff was standing on the edge of a cliff, literally and figuratively. It could have been another ghost, another sad story in a book about lost mansions. But something happened. Something that secured its survival, and that something is the secret that has kept it standing for 120 years. Rosecliff stood on the precipice, a magnificent relic on the verge of extinction. It needed a miracle, and in 1971, that miracle arrived. It came in the form of an act of extraordinary generosity from its last private owners, Mr. and Mrs. J. Edgar Monroe. They didn't just sell the house to the struggling Preservation Society. They didn't just give it away. They did something far more visionary. In 1971, the Monroes donated the entire Rosecliff estate, the house, all of its priceless French furnishings, and, most importantly, a $2 million operating endowment. Let that sink in. $2 million. In 1971. That's the equivalent of over $15 million today. This wasn't just a gift, it was a lifeline. It was the answer to the impossible question that had doomed so many other Gilded Age mansions. It's one thing to be given a palace, but it's another thing entirely to be able to afford to keep the lights on. The Monroes' endowment ensured that Rosecliff would not be a financial burden. It secured its future. It was the act that pulled the house back from the brink. And so, we come back to our central mystery. Why? Why was Rosecliff saved when so many of its neighbors were turned to dust? The endowment is the simple answer. But it's not the complete answer. The real secret, the 120-year-old secret to its survival, is baked into the very design of the house itself. It's a secret that even its creator, Tessie Oelrichs, could never have predicted. Remember Tessie's vision. She didn't want a home. She wanted a stage. She didn't want a residence. She wanted a party palace. She instructed Stanford White to design a house built for one purpose, to entertain on the most lavish scale imaginable. And in doing so, she accidentally created the perfect blueprint for a 21st century business model. Think about it. What do you do with a 65-room Gilded Age mansion that no one can afford to live in? The other mansions, designed as family homes, were difficult to adapt. Their layouts were awkward, their rooms too specific. But Rosecliff was different. It had the largest ballroom in Newport. It had a grand flowing terrace with ocean views. It had a heart-shaped staircase that was practically designed for wedding photos. It was, in short, the most magnificent event venue you could possibly imagine. This is the secret. The very thing that made Rosecliff the ultimate party house in 1902 is what makes it a commercially viable enterprise today. The house could earn its own keep. The Preservation Society could rent it out for weddings, for corporate events, for charity galas. The revenue generated from these events could then be poured back into the preservation of the house itself. It's a perfect self-sustaining loop. Tessie's obsession with being the ultimate hostess is what ultimately saved her house. Her ghost is, in a way, still the most sought-after event planner in Newport. And then came the second part of the secret, the one that would transform Rosecliff from a local treasure into a global icon. In 1974, just 3 years after the Preservation Society took over, Hollywood came knocking. Director Jack Clayton was looking for a location for his lavish film adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's masterpiece, The Great Gatsby. He needed a house that could embody Jay Gatsby's romantic, obsessive, and ultimately tragic dream. He needed a house that looked like new money, that dripped with a kind of magical, theatrical elegance. He chose Rosecliffe. It was a piece of casting genius. The shimmering white terracotta facade, the grand ballroom, the terrace overlooking the water. It was Gatsby's mansion. Suddenly, Rosecliffe wasn't just a historic house museum, it was a movie star. It was a household name. The film cemented Rosecliffe in the public imagination as the ultimate symbol of Gilded Age fantasy and romance. This fame was transformative. It brought a flood of new visitors, people who wanted to see Gatsby's ballroom, who wanted to stand on the terrace where Robert Redford and Mia Farrow had danced. That tourism generated more revenue, which funded more preservation. It was a virtuous cycle. The house's beauty made it famous, and its fame helped pay for the upkeep of its beauty. It would go on to star in other films, like the action comedy True Lies, the historical drama Amistad, and the romantic comedy 27 Dresses. Each appearance added another layer to its legend, another reason for the public to love it, and another revenue stream to ensure its survival. And so, the house that was built by a woman desperate for social acceptance found a new, more profound kind of acceptance. Tessie Oelrichs built Rosecliffe as a fortress of social exclusion, a private theater for the wealthiest 1% of the 1%. There is a beautiful, profound irony in the fact that her palace survived only by becoming radically inclusive. It was saved by opening its doors to the public, to tourists, to movie crews, to brides and grooms from all walks of life. Today, if you visit Rosecliffe, you can feel that legacy. The house is not a stuffy, velvet-roped museum. It's lightly furnished, its magnificent architecture allowed to speak for itself. It feels alive, expectant. You can almost hear the echo of the orchestras that once played in its ballroom, the rustle of silk gowns on its heart-shaped staircase, the murmur of gossip on its moonlit terrace. The music that fell silent with Tessie's death in 1926 has returned. The ballroom once again hosts parties. The terrace once again overflows with laughter and champagne. The dream of a house built for perpetual celebration, a house that was, in its very essence, too beautiful to die, was finally realized. Not in the way Tessie Oelrichs ever imagined, but in a way that is perhaps even more beautiful. Her secret is out, and her house, against all odds, lives on. A testament to the enduring power of beauty, ambition, and the strange, unpredictable currents of history that can turn a private palace into a public treasure.